So, welcome. We're looking at the book of Genesis. Genesis, of course, means beginning, and it's the first book of the Bible. It talks about the story of creation, doesn't it? Right at the beginning, how God creates all of the living creatures, things with fur, things with feathers, things that move in the sea, and even humanity as well. The book of Genesis actually is in three parts. The first 11 chapters tell, if you like, the beginning of the world and try and work out how do we fit into that world in all of its complexity. You'll find their sibling rivalry, you'll find their attention between industry and agriculture, you'll find their attention between difference and how people who are similar live alongside one another. If you like, it's 11 chapters trying to work out the rough and the smooth. How do we all live alongside one another? Then in the second part, we have the story of Abraham. Begins by being called Abram, and then his son Isaac, his son Jacob, and then into the story of Joseph, which is the third part from chapter 37 in the book of Genesis. So three parts, chapters 1 to 11, the creation stuff and the beginnings of the world and our part within it, and then chapters 12 to 36, all around Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then the third part, chapter 37 through to chapter 50, that well-known story of Joseph and his coat of many colours. Genesis also gives us a brilliant verse, the cry of despair of many a prepubescent boy. My brother is a hairy man, but I am a smooth man. Well, don't worry about it, just think of the back. But that's not the verse I want to leave you with this evening. But it is a verse that comes from the same story that involves Jacob. Jacob, you'll remember, deceives his father. He pretends he dresses up with hairy clothes in order to deceive his father, pretending to be his brother in order to get the blessing of the firstborn. But what's interesting is even after the deceit is uncovered, his dad does bless him. Isaac blesses Jacob with these words: May God Almighty bless you, make you fruitful and numerous. That was always the blessing that was destined for Jacob. For Isaac, rather. That was always the blessing that Isaac wanted to give Jacob. He didn't need to deceive others in order to get it. And even after he's deceived, that's the blessing that his dad Isaac gives to Jacob. And the story of Genesis, right from the start of the story of the scriptures, includes several wonderful things then. It includes a God who speaks, a God who creates, and rather than a God who demands things from humanity, a God who gives things to humanity, a God who blesses. And that's the story of Genesis, all the way through from those early chapters, right the way through to chapter 50 and through the story of Joseph. Even when we get it wrong, God makes space for us and seeks to be with us. Abraham in his old age, God intervenes and gives him children, makes him the start of many nations. When Jacob deceives, blessing follows. When Joseph is sold into slavery, God uses it for good. What Genesis tells us then is that the God whom we believe in isn't a God who just starts things off and leaves it to evolve. No, God is a God who is involved, a God who speaks, a God who longs to be with his people, a God who interacts with his creation, bringing order out of chaos. And so, right from the start, we discover those themes in the book of Genesis, right at the beginning, and we're going to see how those themes weave through the rest of the story. But tomorrow, we'll go to Exodus and we'll think about God who opens doors. Join me then.